Folks, how are we doing? And you're very welcome back to another episode of Behind the Walls with myself, Pete the Builder, and
Ferg.
Ferg loves that a little bit. So today we are going to meet with one of the top men in insulation in Ireland. We have Mr. Henry Sheehan from the NIAI, which is the National Insulation Association of Ireland. Did I get that right, Henry?
Correct.
Well done. So Henry, you're very, very welcome.
Thank you very much, Pete.
To the podcast. Thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure.
All the way up from Limerick?
Yes. Nice drive this morning, beautiful weather, and traffic wasn't too bad. Tricky enough getting to this part of the world, but beautiful surroundings, and thanks for having me.
Great stuff. Well, we're delighted to have you. So tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your construction journey. How did you end up as the chairman? That's why I wore a shirt today, by the way, because I was meeting the chairman, you know.
Oh, thanks. Well, it all began in May 1975, 50 years ago. I got started in the insulation business and on the contracting side through the power station in Tarbert, which is now decommissioned because of the what was burning and the emissions and the issues. Yes, yeah. And it's been will we say repurposed and moved from there to a company after a couple of years called Southern Chemicals, manufacturing insulation, and that morphed into a company called Airboard. It was owned by CRH, and I was there for 35 or 6 years, and after retiring then we had formed the National Insulation Association about 12 years ago, so I took up the chairman's position some years back, and it's been an interesting journey, to say the least. And I think that insulation itself is one of the few products that, when you look back in it, it has come in so many forms. And I'm thinking on the way up about the oldest insulation on the planet, and it exists in the northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere. It's called snow.
Snow, yeah.
And you look at the Inuit, or what's called the Eskimos, and their igloos, and that can be 45 or 50 below. Outside it will be maybe minus 7 or 8 in the igloo. Their body heat will keep them warm together with whatever clothes they had. So our friend the polar bear here, then they copy him or he copied them, I'm not quite sure, but it's all come together. It's all about trapping air, and we have so many different types of insulants in the world at this point in time, from some that and they all have their purpose and they all have their places. So in terms of the association, well, I'm product neutral, right?
Yes.
Even though I have my background in what it was in EPS. So it is when back in the 70s really started to get the whole design change, the whole specification change. But when I came into the company, I feel I have to say this, a founder member of the company, Mr. Dermot O'Riordan, there was underfloor insulation, they were generating electricity on the river, there was external wall insulation, there was underfloor heating.
And this is back in 1975?
It was there before I came, so it was, the generator was there before that, but the external insulation, he had come across the product, EPS in Germany, and he was in Sketen in the plant there, and to this day it's still there.
Wow.
On the wall, retaining its insulation value. So I think that's something worth, a bit like, again, the polar bear and the igloo, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Once you install insulation and install it properly, and I think it would be remiss of me to sit here and say, just put it in, install it, to be fine. It has to be done properly.
Yeah.
And that's where, the industry has come on in leaps and bounds and that, and it makes a tremendous difference.
Yeah.
Because I know there might be people from other parts of the retrofit industry might take some issue, but when you install insulation properly, I beg your pardon, in any property, it will be there for the duration and the life of that building, that property. Whether that's wants to be knocked down in 20, 25 or 30 years for whatever reason, or there for 100 or 150 years. Yeah. It'll be still there, working away, no moving parts, nothing whatsoever like that. Won't be a need to be looking out and saying we'll be replacing it in 10 or 15 years. But I stress, it's got to be installed properly.
Brilliant. So you're a man after my own heart then as well, because I've often said that on this podcast, that there's lots of different types of materials to use, and it's about using the right material in the right situation.
Correct.
It has to be compatible with the building. It has to be fit for purpose. It has to be able to withstand the environment that is being put into.
Correct.
And obviously it has to be installed correctly.
Yeah. And
it needs to be specified to the right thickness to achieve certain things.
Yeah.
So you're obviously a man, very, very experienced man, and we'll get into the retrofits first. we get into the retrofit stuff in a few minutes.
Okay.
But what I'd like to talk about first is like the evolution of insulation. Like you've seen it obviously over a long period of time. It must have been a phenomenal thing to see, because like back in 1975, it was probably a luxury that most people were saying, I'm not interested in that because I just literally want my four walls and my roof. And then now it's absolutely one of the priorities that we have, you know, in our buildings at the moment.
You're 100% correct. Right now, we'll just start here now and go back. You know, fabric first is the name of the game now. You've got to get the fabric right. Go back to 1975, 77. I mean, it wasn't in specifications, so the company knew and had learned a lot from the German experience, and BASF were the raw material suppliers, the chemical company, if you read about them, that's what they are. And the same Mr. O'Riordan, I hope you don't mind, he won't mind me referring to him at this stage anyway, he's moved on. He came back with these revolutionary ideas, and he had a couple of salesmen going around with, in the evenings after their day's work, they'd hold a seminar in a hotel in Kilkenny or Cork or Dublin, whatever, and call in a number of builders, have tea and scones and maybe a drink or whatever, organised through the builders' providers.
Okay.
So they'd bring their preferred builders or people that could come. And this presentation was on the value of insulation and what insulation could do. And 40 mil T&G board was going into the cavities at that stage. And they were recommending 25 mil under the floor. I don't have to tell you what those numbers are today.
Yeah.
It's another world.
And that was the expanded
Yes. But
so that's, for people who would know, that's the old white kind of bubbles that you'd see the styrofoam.
It's in board form.
Yeah.
And also, I left this out, and I shouldn't have. There are houses down very near Skeeton with the new what now we're calling new ICFs, you know, insulated concrete formwork. They were built before I came. They were built in 76, I'd say, and they're still there and working away. And
so an ICF was built back then?
Yes.
Wow.
But the product wasn't manufactured here. It was brought in lorry loads from Germany, and just in the very same shape it is now, probably not the same thicknesses, but doing the same job.
Someone way ahead of their time.
This man was way ahead of his time. I happen to be the beneficiary of some of his knowledge. If I lived to be 122, you couldn't. He was just so far ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Energy saving was the thing.
Yes.
And this is the thing that I find about it today. We're talking about, and rightly so, generating green energy every day. It's the buzzword. But I'm saying we have to talk about conservation. Much point in generating energy if it's getting out.
Yes.
So, like the fabric first and the new specifications have to be welcomed. Government put a lot of effort into SEAI in their schemes. They're really pushing the fabric first, and we can't get away from that. You can hit some fancy numbers and in your BR scale, and you needn't have the levels of insulation. But luckily we have backstop values, which are very important, and we must ensure that they stay. We're the envy of Europe, by the way, in terms of the schemes that SEAI and the government.
Say that again. We're what?
We're the envy of Europe.
Okay.
We talk to people and particularly in some of the associations in Europe, and when they hear the level of grant aid and the money that's been put into it, into our schemes here, they're kind of saying, how the hell did you mean that? But I suppose a lot of it came through when we had green input into government. Some people liked it. It depends on what other interests you had in life, but that's it. That made a huge difference. So we have these what I would thought they were excellent schemes now.
I think
it's a question of pushing them. Sorry, Ferg.
I think the 2030 targets pushed policy anyway.
They did, but they had to be put in place.
Yeah, but I'm listening to you, Henry, and I'm thinking how far we've come. Where you're talking about salesmen at night with a tough sell trying to sell insulation. There is no one would build or retrofit a house without insulation being a major consideration. Obviously, you've mentioned fabric first. It's the first thought that you go through in a retrofit. How are we going to insulate our walls? But it's very important, and it was mentioned a couple of times already about, I know Pete has mentioned different installations, but design is hugely important.
Yeah.
Well, I think back on this again with Mr. David O'Riordan, and that's the way I refer to him always, with utmost respect. I was building the house at the time that we touched about earlier out at home, and when in the interview he said, "And tell me, what are you doing about the insulation for the walls?" And I was going, I'd been in the industrial side in a power station, and insulation of walls wasn't really in my head. But luckily, I had read up on all the company literature before I went to the interview, and but the walls were half built.
With no insulation.
It took a while to build it, but after,
Yeah.
but yeah, we put aerobead into the walls at that particular point in time. But there's another thing. Then you're talking about the schemes we have, and big money being spent, huge money being spent by government. But if we spend, we'd say the figure they spend 100 million, just for argument's sake, in one scheme or whatever scheme over a period of time. Contractors spend $1 million on diesel. As a cohort, they spend $1 million on diesel. The tax on diesel is about 55%. So we'd say it's 50% even. So they get back 500,000 in that. So it's win-win for everybody with the retrofit program. The government are spending big money, they're getting back money. We have employment, not just concentrated in places, like a big factory being built in Cork or in Dublin or whatever, employing 1,500, a couple thousand people. The employees are spread across the country. Every small town, there's the opportunity. There are vans on the road, people up at 6 o'clock in the morning trying to beat the weather, beat the traffic, beat everything. Huge employment being created through the retrofit program.
Yeah.
And it's very important to stress that it is being spread throughout. It's not just concentrated, okay, but more in the bigger population areas, which is understandable. But and the training that has gone into it over the last number of years, and the companies themselves, because they're all nearly working with some of the products we spoke about, have agreement certification. Other than that, they won't be in the schemes. So there's very, very good quality of work being carried out.
Yeah, so for the homeowner who's listening or watching, you touched on it a little bit earlier, and I'd like to bring you back to that. So fabric first is a great saying, and to break that down, basically to explain that to anyone who's listening, what it basically means is rather than you investing money in solar panels or maybe in a heat pump, what you're suggesting is that they get the fabric right first. What's the point in putting in a renewable energy mechanism or device if the building is not energy efficient to start off with? So
100%.
talk to us a bit about that. Like what how important is it to get your insulation correct and get your envelope?
It is of paramount importance.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get insulation and airtightness
Yes.
is key critical as well. And we're not in the industry is in the airtightness because we represent manufacturers, contractors, system designers, the whole spectrum. You can have that thickness of insulation in your walls, under your floor, in your attic, wherever the hell. But if you have that door and a gap of 50 millimeters under it, and those two windows over there are leaking,
Yeah.
you're wasting your time.
Yeah, the heat's gonna
It's a
do
pure
something.
nonsense.
Yeah.
You've got to get. I know. You've got to get the balance right. You can't be smothering in the house. But
Yes.
in new houses we have mechanical ventilation.
Yeah,
We've all
controlled ventilation.
Yeah, control, and
Yeah.
it's not a big job even other than with the new windows and the ventilation system. Them, you've got to have airtightness right. Simply got it, and insulation. You have those two right, you're a long way. Your heat pump won't be working as hard.
Yes.
Will last longer. So the pluses and positives are there for all to see. When you know, it's
Yeah. So I would definitely get, I suppose, when I'm doing projects, I would agree a price for the job, let's say, and this wouldn't be technically a retrofit. It could be any kind of project. And what happens is a certain amount of money is allocated to different aspects of the project, and it doesn't happen as much. Well, it doesn't happen probably ever now, but I used to always have this thing where people would say, listen, there's €5,000 in for the insulation there. Like, it's an awful lot of money. I want to get my kitchen and my kitchen is 12,000 and I only have 10. So can we take 2,000 of insulation out and put it into the and I used to be listening to this going, are you for real? Like, so like, I suppose that I think with education, you know, with the fact that I think we all kind of understand, and you know, people are a bit more educated now on the whole energy efficiency of a home and that type of stuff. Have you seen a big uptake on that in terms of people actually understanding and people committing to getting their fabric right?
No question about it, because the regulations have changed.
Yes,
from where we were going back in the 70s with 40 mil. Then remember having the companies and another association having a meeting with the then. Was he Minister for Enterprise? I'm not quite sure. That was Albert Reynolds. I remember, God be good to him, and everything had to be in one page, whatever points from it. And what we were trying to do was improve the insulation levels and move it from 40 mil to 60 mil, and we were successful. And the floors went to 50 mil. Sure, it was, you know, it was manna from heaven to the industry, and it has progressed since, because specifiers, engineers, architects, they all know the value of it. It's like our friend, I keep referring to him, the polar bear. Right? He knows the value of thick fur, and they now know the value. And okay, the cost of it, of course, has gone up. But it's funny you mentioned about the kitchens and the rest of it. That was always an old thing. Oh yeah, but there's no real. Now I suppose there is. You had no real value in there was no aesthetic value in insulation under a floor or inside in a wall. Now you have it with external insulation, and if you look at the cost of, we'll just say house cost, I'm picking a number here, 18,000, 20,000. Well, if you want to paint, it's going to cost you maybe about 2,000. So take that off it, and you have a job for life. Now, kitchens are I'd stay away from the subject, because they can they can be very emotive.
They're the heart of the home. They're the heart of the home.
And it's no contest between kitchen and insulation. I won't get involved in that battle.
Would you rather have a warm heart than a cold heart? Isn't that a good way of putting it?
Yeah.
Ferg, have you seen, I suppose in your time, a bit of I don't want to call it an acceptance, but I suppose a realisation of the value of insulating your home correctly and going into the fine detail? Because I think that we're pretty much at that level now, where it's not only I want to use good insulation. I think people are educated enough to know that they actually want to fit it properly, and they want to see all the proper details done. They don't want any thermal bridging, all of those type of things.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole topic that Henry is covering there, awareness has been there's a huge uplift in awareness, and down to SEAI pushing these programs and advertising. And I mean, it's a hot topic now, energy upgrades. Mm-hmm. But when Henry is talking about the insulation, how important it is, I mean, no matter what you're heating your house with, if the insulation is correct, if you look at your house and look at it and say it's an envelope, all you're trying to do is go up one side, across the roof, back down the other side. And no matter what you're heating your house with, it will stay in there longer, because obviously insulation is retaining the heat. So that's how important it is, and that's why we always talk about fabric first. So insulation is number one, and then your windows and doors sit into your insulation, so they go with it. So that's your fabric and your attic. And then you can start looking at heating systems. But as I said, no matter what you're heating your house with, it's about keeping it there for as long as you can. And that's the basics.
As simple as that.
As simple as that, yeah.
And on that term, fabric, first, the European External Wall Insulation Association, the EAE, they have adopted that fabric first mantra. They have it in all their literature now, and it started here in Ireland, so we'd be happy enough about that, you know.
And it's funny you mentioned Europe earlier, because as a registered one-stop shop, we would be contacted from European counterparts looking for information about how Ireland are managing to run a program like the one-stop shop, and they are behind us. It's you know, people think Ireland are only following in the footsteps of the likes of Germany and France, whereas it's actually the other way around, where they're actually looking for information from us.
Well, you'd have to say that the Scandinavian countries, you know, they were well ahead of the curve. And for obvious reasons,
in case I haven't
a bit further north, right?
Yeah,
so they got the picture a lot earlier, and like how they do, they're fantastic standards. And I've been in some Norwegian houses over the years in my previous life, and like they're quite incredible, and they have it down to a fine art. They really have.
Yeah.
But you mentioned about earlier as regards the schemes and all that. I mean, we're just so lucky, and I mean, we repeat ourselves, so lucky to have all that, and the commitment is there from government to do it, and we just hope that all continues. I mean, it's interesting times. The whole world economic situation is ever changing now. So that commitment, I think, it's there, and we have the monies are ring fenced, but sometimes ring fences can can get broken down. So it's very important that we're all beating that drum, but the message is getting through. You'll have it from some of your customers where you go back and say, well, how did that house perform, and they're absolutely thrilled.
Yeah. So would you say to people, because I do think that, people maybe have come a little bit complacent with the fact that our government is given, through the SEAI grants, is given grants to upgrade the homes. Would you say to people, like, they have to realise that, and I've said this several times, I've very rarely got free money from the government ever in my life. It's usually the other way around, where I'm paying taxes and I'm doing those type of things. So when you have an opportunity to take advantage of a grant to do work to your home, I know it doesn't pay for all of the work, but it certainly motivates you, and it gives you a good bit of a start. Where do you think we are on that? Do you think we're in a good place?
Well, I think first of all, you start with we've got the Warmer Homes grant for people that meet certain criteria, and they will get the entire 100% of the upgrade funded by government. Yeah, I mean, that is
a no-brainer.
And they will do it. And they're the people that, obviously, from meeting the criteria, and need to have that done. And a lot of those houses are coming from a very, very low level on the scale, and like those people are just so delighted. I mean, there are so many pluses in it. You've got the comfort, you've got the health aspect of it, because they're inside in a cold house, coughing and sneezing and whatever, and you've got the fuel bills are way down. Everybody wins. Everybody wins in this one, and they've got it done for nothing but through government. I mean, that has to be welcomed. They can't improve very much on that. There are people calling for maybe more to look at the systems again. Now, I saw, and I have no detail on it at this point in time, that there is a SEA, the department are carrying out a review. So we'll be interested to see what's contained in that review. I don't know, and I'm not prepared to speculate as to what the review might entail, but let's see. But you're right, there are if you do just, and correct me if I got any of these, and the finer detail I might not have exactly, you can get your attic and walls done as just two single measures and get good grants for the growth. Get a grant for an attic of about
1,500 for detached.
Yes, and 1,800 for walls. I mean, that's covering the bulk of the cost, a lot of the cost. Well, so it's a no-brainer not doing those, a total no-brainer. But I'd go back again to the airtightness. For me, this is just a personal view, and I'm not saying that if I was having a house upgraded in the morning and see where am I going to start, the first thing I do is get a blower door test to see where I have the air leakage. But there are certain houses, depends on the type they are, that perform a lot worse than others. There are houses with 3 and 4 chimneys in them, and the chimneys are doing nothing, only drawing a big bloody draft. Take your hat up the chimney.
As long as you counter your airtightness by installing a ventilation system.
Absolutely. I'm using it as a starting point.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Then if you have 10 air changes per hour, well, no.
When you get into older houses that the ventilation system is leaks. That's the way it works. But that's also losing heat for you as well. So I go and a proper survey by surveyor companies, and like you do that in the one-stop shop for take A to Z. I think the one-stop shop is a good example of obviously it does what it says on the tin. It's a one-stop shop, but from start to finish, and the starting point is very important. We talk about home energy assessments, but as part of that process, you're getting a design element, and we're talking about using the correct installations. And again, there's a pilot scheme out now from SEAI for traditional homes.
That's right.
To ensure that, I suppose, modern technologies are not just being thrown up on walls, and there's consideration put into the type of wall and how it will react to the installation. So that's all kind of progress, and it's all good. I keep talking about the carrot and stick, and I think in Ireland, I mean, I hear a lot of negativity about grants not being enough. There's other countries that have no grants at all. So I would say we're still in the carrot stage, But there is no doubt that I wouldn't like to be buying oil or gas in 10 years' time. I don't know, is it going to work out that way? Like, there's other considerations in terms of pricing, and you can't kind of just lash taxes onto things. But that's where we're heading. I don't know, do you agree with where we're going in terms of more of a stick approach eventually?
Well, like I said just a few minutes ago, I think it'll be interesting to see what this review throws up.
Yeah.
So I'll hold powder on that one.
Yeah.
For now, everybody would like to get 100% grant funding. Of course they would, but we got to be realistic. I mean, you could be a multi-millionaire and you'll get the same grant as a lad that is only a couple of £100 over whatever threshold there is. So there are all these imbalances, and I'm afraid we'll never iron out those wrinkles.
I think through the one-stop shop process, the average grant is coming out about 35%. That's the average grant. I mean, there's set grants, so there's bigger grants for detached houses.
35%, maybe 60,000, 70,000.
Depends. Depends again on down to your installation. If you're going external wall, it's obviously a lot more expensive than cavity wall installation. So it just depends.
Costing 50 and 60,000.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Back to the kitchen again.
There you go.
But I do think it's important that, again, if anyone's listening, that we said this before as well, that when you're applying for your grants, it's actually not means tested. It's actually the house that gets reviewed, and it's your house, if it's eligible through its age. It's BER rating and that type of stuff. Once you haven't had a previous grant, that's what gets you your grants as well. So here's a question for you, and I might be putting you in an awkward position here. If you were building a house today, okay, or if you're retrofitting your house, I suppose it's two different questions really. Which form of insulation would you go for? Which form of build do you feel is the best one? And look, I think, again, houses will always get to a certain rating, but I think my opinion on it is that it is about what you like the feel of a house to be. But we've got so many options now in terms of, you obviously have your traditional cavity wall construction with full fill insulation. You can do a solid wall with either internal or external insulation. You can do ICF. You can do timber frame. So what as the insulation man, the chairman of the Insulation Association of Ireland, what would you say is your preferred, or what would you recommend?
Next question.
I was going to say, don't answer that, Henry.
Well, I said earlier, look, that I'm product neutral, okay?
Yes, yeah.
But when you look at, and you've just outlined them, when you go back over them, the different types of construction that are there, the important thing is to be able to incorporate the maximum amount of whatever incident the designer chooses, to say this is what's most suitable to us, because the products are all there. But one very important point I would make is that to ensure that they have the proper certification, that they have NSAI or whatever certification is applicable. There are other certification bodies as well. So it is vital that the products have those, whether it's a foam product, a wool product, whatever fits best into that specification. But make sure you have the as much as possible.
Yes.
You don't want to get into the law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
So when you hit that, that's it. And I'm not hung up on what particular incident it is, as long as it has certification and it's installed properly.
Yeah. And obviously, if you go through SEAI schemes, they all have to be certified anyway.
And that's what you're talking about, a new construction, the installation. And remember, it's not just about retrofit. The installation business is for the new build. More importantly, we're looking at passive housing now, right?
Yes.
Which is where in utopia, well, that's where it all finish up, but that won't happen, right? Yeah. But it's a tremendous goal, and I saw a scheme, I'm not quite sure, here in South County Dublin, excuse me, in some magazine there last week or the week before, but they have, won't mention any companies' names or anything, they have 120 passive house scheme, which is really, really tremendous to see.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that have been ploughing that for a long time, but it's nice to see them reaping that harvest now at this point in time.
Yeah, again, just getting back to my question on which is the preferred insulation to use, I think people have to consider where they live as well and how they live. Like if they're living in a, let's say, a housing estate that's quite sheltered, you could probably go with some form of build. But if you're living in a coastal area and you're living in a very exposed area, I think you have to consider the type of construction that you you use.
Well, that's another. I mean, again, if you're in a coastal area,
Yeah.
again, someone will pick a hole in this, and I'll do a phone call. I mean, you have to look at the actual integrity of the construction.
Yeah.
And obviously, concrete build would be my preferred option with the maximum amount of insulation, whether it's you build a block on the flat or have external, have cavity and internal or whatever, and you have your attic and floors. I mean, in retrofit we don't talk much about floors, because except you're doing nearly a real deep refurb and pulling out the whole lot, but in that situation it's absolutely critical to take the advantage of it. And if you're putting it on the floor, heating, of course, well then you have to have it.
Yeah. So it's fair to say, choose which one suits the best. Your location or your environment the best, but then put as much in as you possibly can.
Yes,
it's an investment. Pretty much.
It is. And in a retrofit situation, it's going to enhance the value of the property by you. It depends on what anywhere. 70, 80, 100,000, no problem, and more.
Yeah, you're going to
and
come
for life. It's for life.
It is for life
of the house. So.
But you're going to come across different situations where, like, I would deal a lot with homeowners, and if you're lucky enough to have a cavity wall, there's your simple answer.
Yeah.
If you're hollow block, the only choice you have is internal or external.
Yeah.
And if you're timber framed, the only choice you have is internal.
Yeah.
So there's different scenarios that will dictate what way you have to go. Like I suppose a lot of Dublin would be built with hollow block, and if you started today, Henry, you wouldn't build a shed out of hollow block.
Oh, I know.
And we're after moving on, but now we're trying to. So I suppose, what we don't want to do in 20 years' time is be retrofitting the retrofit.
Yes.
Well, that's
exactly what we don't want to do.
100%. Yeah. Can't be going back. We cannot be going back. So that's why the design and the application, installation, all that are key critical.
But the good news is that there's pretty much an insulation product for every single situation.
Fabric application,
And I think if anyone again is listening and they're thinking, oh look, because I have a certain type of a house, it restricts me, I'm not able to put insulation in.
No.
That is completely incorrect. There's always a solution to any situation.
When you get your surveyor, designer, or whatever, look at that. The solutions are there. There's no question about it. Some may cost more than others, but there is the solution. No matter what it is.
So here's a question for you. When will it ever stop? Like, when will the amount of insulation that's going on in the house ever get to the point where it's enough?
When you come into the kind of diminishing returns, you so much you can't putting in 2 meters thick of it isn't going to.
It's impractical.
It's impractical. So the practicalities, because you can't, and costs will come into it as well, because you can't just keep pushing the foundation width, because land tends to be valuable these days. It's about the number of houses you can get onto your site. If you buy 3 acres up there, whatever, well then you'll be on to the maximum. So if the foundations are getting wider and wider and wider. And I could well stand to be corrected on this, I wouldn't see kind of 15, 20, 50% increase in the insulation values over where we are now. Some modern technologies, there are gurus and chemists working in the background to improve that every day. There's a product out there I'm not bothering mentioning it, it's only very, very niche here in Ireland, called aerogel. You probably heard it from Aspen. It was on the spaceship.
Right.
It'll come and it's about that thick, but it's an excellent value. But the cost of it is just prohibitive. You couldn't even think about it. So the practicalities of it will always prevail as well.
Yeah.
So we won't continue to go with huge levels, because that'll bring some of its own problems.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be bringing building physics guys along every day to kind of saying, am I mad to do this or do whatever, So it's if we could continue doing what we're doing, maybe have some increase. I would see the opportunity to increase the thickness, which wouldn't cost the art of the insulation, regardless of what insulant it is, on external wall insulation.
Okay.
The insulation as an element isn't that expensive in itself. A cavity wall, you can't do anything with that, only whatever width of cavity is there. Going internally if you want to push the levels, you're going to be losing floor area. So the practicalities will come, but certainly, the external is one where we're well behind Europe in terms of thicknesses of insulation on EWI at this point. That's something that might be considered.
So we're coming to the end of our chat. So what piece of advice would you give to anybody, whether it's a retrofit, a new build, anything, when it comes to, obviously insulation is your bread and butter, what advice would you give to someone who's got a build coming up or is considering retrofitting, like in terms of investment, in terms of value for money? What would you say is the best piece of advice that you could give to anybody in that situation?
Well, first of all, they're going to have their architect and engineer, right? And they will be, they are the people that know, they should know, they will advise on what the layout of the house, if it's a single story as against multi-story, 2-story, 3-story dormer, whatever. There will be different design criteria for that. So, and then you follow it to the nth degree to get the maximum levels and ensure that you have the foreman, clerk of works, call him what you like, whoever is looking after the build, whoever has the responsibility for the design, some are design and build, more are straight off the drawings, make sure that the installation is correct. Having chosen their particular type of installation, ensuring that it has the certification, like I said earlier, and they can't go far wrong there.
Very good. Any more questions for yourself, Ferg?
Don't spend as much on the kitchen.
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice, yeah.
That's the way I'd go. Put it into the insulation. I know you can't see it,
I
but
prefer
it'll
to
save you
stay
in the
out
long
of
run. I've never heard of a kitchen saving anyone any money. Henry has no comment on the kitchen.
Any platforms that would be worth people checking out? Is there anywhere that you could guide people? I know the SEAI website is an excellent one to start off with.
SEAI, absolutely. We have our own website as well. But look, I think that one thing that, just to finish off on the retrofit, I think SEAI might be considering kind of a promotional program as well. But a lot of people have said they don't know about certain schemes and what's out there. But the SEAI website for retrofit, except you don't know how to navigate on it, if you go in, you'll find a lot of information, and if you fail there, I'm sure there are phone numbers that they will find them helpful. And there are plenty a number of one-stop shop people or insulation contractors, retrofit contractors out there, only willing to help, and they're all well vetted and doing good work.
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you very much for coming up, Henry.
Thank you. My pleasure.
It was great to have you, and great to hear the stories of new and old.
Yeah.
And if anybody has any questions that they would like to send to myself and Fergal, we have got Henry's phone number, so we'll certainly get onto him and try and get a few answers.
We had Henry's phone number.
Yeah, we had until the questions got too hard. No, thanks very much for coming up, Henry. Really appreciate it. And as always, please give us your comments. Make sure you follow us, and we look forward to seeing you at the next episode Behind the Walls with Pete and
Ferg.
Thanks a million.
Thanks, Henry.